Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Confidants, I just want to tell you about a book that I've written called Fool Me Twice. It's my memoir and it's a story of how I was scammed and assaulted while online dating. It was a difficult book to write because I really had to overcome the shame of my choices. But I wanted to do it so that I could help other people not get caught in the same trap that I was. At the end of the book, there are a whole lot of suggestions of what people need to look out for and how they can date safely online. My book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and it's also in Hong Kong bookstores. Here is a promo for my book. I hope you enjoy it.
From life on a farm in rural Australia, where wide open spaces made a young woman yearn to know what was beyond her country town. She moved to the city, became a mother, and found her dream career which took her across the world. But still, something's missing. In her search for love, she traveled far, trusted deeply. She wanted so badly to find someone that she almost lost herself in the process and learned some hard lessons along the way. Fool Me Twice, a new memoir by Jules Hannaford. Available on Amazon.
Today I'm here with Carmen Yao, who was one of the speakers in the Tin Hau TEDx talk. And Carmen, your talk was fantastic. And she's also tell me what you are.
I'm also a story from the Jockey Club PolyU Humans Library Hub.
So you're a storyteller?
I am also one of the stories that's showcasing in the hub. And what we're trying to do is to showcase all sorts of stories in Hong Kong for students, for young adults, as general public to know more about stories and social issues in Hong Kong and Asia.
Oh, great. And so you're sharing your story as a part of that storytelling hub.
Right.
Fantastic. Carmen, first of all, to get started, tell me a bit about your childhood. Where are you from and what was it like growing up for you?
Before I tell you about my childhood, the first thing I usually tell people is about my disability. I'm born with spinal muscular atrophy, so it's a genetic killer of children under the age of 2. And the muscles and my health condition deteriorates over time. So right now you're listening to me, I'm speaking very fluently, but actually I'm electronic wheelchair bound and I can be named as quadriplegic when I'm lying in the bed. I can't move any part of my body now. And at night time, I have to rely on a breathing machine for sleep. So my health is deteriorating, but when I was a child, actually I was still able to walk around like any other children. It's just when I reached to my puberty age, it's getting really difficult to walk. And since then, I start relying on a wheelchair.
Oh, so you were just, as a teenager, you went into a wheelchair, but you were moving around. When did your parents discover that you were unwell? What age were you?
Well, spinal muscular atrophy is actually a genetic disease. So people born with symptoms, but probably it's not very significant. So Sometimes people may not be aware of it, but I believe that I was being diagnosed when about 3 or 4 years old because they find me walking like a penguin. They told me that, that I was walking like a penguin, that I'm shaking from right to left, all the time. At the beginning, my mom think, probably it's the diaper problem that makes the kids difficult to walk. But when I reached to 3 to 4 years old, and then they find that, I'm still walking like a penguin. So they sent me to the hospital. And then since then, I got diagnosed.
What was it like growing up with this genetic condition as a child?
I think a lot of parents, they have a lot of plans and, dream about their children in the future, like what kind of dance they're going to learn ballet, pretty girl, and then going to prom. And, there's a lot of plan in their life for a daughter. But because of my genetic disease, actually, I don't see my parents having a lot of expectation, especially when doctors and everyone were telling you that, your kid is in a very serious terminal illness. So honestly speaking, my parents did not have a lot of expectation on me. The only thing that they would concern is about protection, as well as how am I going to do when we are getting old and you are growing up, in a way that was their main concern. That's why when I graduate from my bachelor degree, I still remember that my mom told me, she said, well, getting the bachelor degree is your dream and you got your dream come true. So now it's time for you to stay home and you don't need to get a job because mom and dad will be supporting you at home. So you don't have that sort of pressure.
Oh, that's interesting. But you obviously wanted to use your bachelor's degree and do something.
So I was thinking, I study psychology. So I was thinking, I said to myself, they are really planning to groom me to be a spinster like Jane Austen,
Yeah.
They have no plan and they just want to keep me at home. That be the good daughter at home with accompanying the family, and that's good enough. So I was thinking, they were really thinking I'm going to be a Jane Austen spinster. But I was thinking, if I just want to be a spinster, I don't have to go to study my bachelor degree. I mean, I just complete my high school and I can just stay home to be, like the princess of the castle. I don't have to go anywhere. So in a way, I was thinking, no, it's impossible because I study my bachelor degree. Of course, definitely, even though I know that it's really tough and difficult to get a job for people with disabilities, especially on a wheelchair with no job experience at all. So I know that's the reality, but I still think that I should make an effort, being a clerk or underpaid or whatever, but I still want to, in a way, we don't want to stuck at home.
No, because that would be boring. And look at, you've got such an amazing personality and so many skills. And you'd already got your degree. You've got to get out and use them. And I guess your parents were afraid, perhaps, of the struggles you might face or the discrimination or bullying or things like that. And they wanted to protect you. But it's a real testament to you that you just wanted to fight forward and get out there and do something.
The only thing I just told myself is the only reason that I want to get out of the house and get a job is I don't want to be a spinster. I just don't want to be that way. And I don't want to be, spending the rest of my life on this sort of things. And that's why I decided to really sending a lot of applications around and all kinds of jobs, even jobs that just require like a high school or a Form 3. I mean, in Hong Kong, we call it Form 3. It's a secondary, education that is not really full complete. But I'm still looking for a job, even a receptionist or a clerk or whatever. I just say, give me an offer. Definitely, I'm going to get it.
How did you go in the job search after you had your degree? Did you find anything?
I sent a lot of applications. I do have job interview, but most of the job interview was really out of like politeness or in a way that, they don't want to discriminate you. That's why they offer you an opportunity for job interview. But I don't really get an opportunity to work because, I found it was like a vicious cycle. People were keep challenging me or asking me in the interview that, hey, you don't have no job opportunity. But I asked a very critical question. I mean, if I don't have a job, how can I collect job experience? And if I don't have job experience, how can I get a job?
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, so that was the point that I was telling employers, trying to convince people that I should, offer an opportunity. I was asking them, I say, probably you can give me like half pay, but for 3 months, if you're satisfied with my job performance, you can give me my full wage. I don't mind working for, half price.
You were trying to cut a deal with them, and would they give you a job?
No, not at all.
Oh, what a shame. That must have been really disheartening. Did you feel like giving up, or did it just give you a fire in your belly and make you want to try even harder?
Of course, I was really, in a way, really angry that I was really upset. I mean, I study as hard as everybody. I think I'm being very genuine and, also trying so hard for a, young girl at the age of 18. I think it's really brave and, something that I think I deserve an opportunity, but I'm not really in a very panic mood because actually I have a secret job.
What was your secret job?
Well, the secret job is actually I was working at the sex call center.
Oh, great. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, the job is very simple. The call center doesn't need me to travel all the way to the center. They just gave me a mobile phone. So actually we have shift time. When it's on my shift and the phone will ring. So all I need to do is just to pick it up and talk. And try my best to talk as long as I can. Because at that time, it costs about 60 cents per 6 seconds.
Oh, right. So the longer you can talk to them, the more money you make. Great. So if you're good at your job, you'll make more money.
Right. So the more they think I'm talkative and the more they were willing to talk, then I'll be,
the money will be rolling in. Yeah. That's great.
Yes, that's why I'm very eager to talk to different kind of people.
What kind of people did call up the sex call center?
Well, it's really far beyond your imagination.
I'm sure it is. That's why I want to know. Tell me.
All sorts of people that were calling, and of course, sometimes they were calling for like pillow talks or whatever kind of intimate chat. But most of them, they were actually sharing their stories. It's a lot of very interesting story. I mean, a lot of people like secret, right?
Yes, definitely.
So I'm like the tree hole of all sorts of secret related to sexuality, like exhibitionist calling. Sometimes a father-to-be calling. They call and they were, in a way, telling me how stressful of a father-to-be while the wife is pregnant for 10 months, how struggling that 10 months to be. Actually, fathers can be very stressed out as well.
What's one of the most memorable secrets that somebody shared with you?
A lot of stories are very memorable for me. As I mentioned just now about the father-to-be, I mean, I remember the father-to-be was regular caller. I hope he's not listening.
It's okay, we're not going to name him.
Okay. But the father was spending 10 months, I think more than 10 months time. I mean, calling me regularly. I mean, every 2 to 3 days, he needs to call me just to talk.
And so did sometimes you find yourself in more of a counseling role than a kind of a sexual intimacy role?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of things that he's just not there enough to share with the wife. I mean, for example, like in the beginning, the first few months of the pregnancy, the wife was very stressed out because there's a lot of morning sickness and, a lot of discomfort and things. And then he find it, he was coping as well, but he doesn't have that opportunity to share that kind of stress that he's encountering. So he comes to me.
Yes, because a lot of people focus on the mother and the baby and they don't really recognize the stress that the dad might be going through or how he feels like he's sidelined a little bit or maybe not so important or the mum doesn't feel like sex as much or whatever. There's many reasons.
Yes. And I remembered one of the experience that she shared with me is his wife caught him watching pornography in the middle of the night. And the wife was so mad, like, I got pregnant and you're still watching pornography at the middle of the night. And he was calling to me in a washroom and telling me that, I feel so shameful. My wife just caught me. It feels like she becomes my mom, a lot of emotion things. So we talked for more than an hour.
And how did you reassure him?
Well, I just reassure him. I say, well, just think of it the other way. Maybe first, I think it's important that, we still need to relate to the emotional needs, the basic needs that he needs. I mean, he needs that pornography. I think it's a way of, out of respect that he needs something like that he needs his own privacy. And I don't think it's, something like cheating or doing something that is really unacceptable for the wife. I think it requires more time for the couple to communicate. I mean, to have their own boundaries as well. So I think there's a lot of things that we can chat and to talk about and to make him feel less guilty.
Yeah, less ashamed.
Less ashamed.
Which is nice, isn't it?
Yes. And, he just needs someone to tell him that, it's really okay. But imagine this kind of experience. How can he talk to his buddies or his friends?
Yes, very difficult.
Or his mate, his male friends. It's really difficult. So that's why he comes to me.
Yeah, I can see that. So how many years did you do the work in the sex call center?
Nearly more than a year. And then after that, I got a full-time job afterwards. And then I started to stop working on the sex call center. At that time, because we don't have a lot of smartphones, so there's no dating apps. There's no, calling, no Twitter, not Tinder, nothing. So that's why at that time, the sex call center can still be able to sustain, but afterwards, it can't be sustainable.
Oh, that's interesting. So once online dating started, then they didn't need the call center anymore because they could.
Business.
That was the end of that, a different era. Yeah, that's very interesting.
And at that time, people are not really interested. They don't really keen of dating out. I mean, they just keep talking on the phone. I mean, that's really our old good times that people just keep talking on the phone.
And that's all they needed.
That's all they needed.
Back in the good old days.
Yeah, back in the good old days. But nowadays, people are really stressful because you talk to somebody on the online apps. They're expecting you
to hook up or to meet them or to have a relationship, and you've got to find out what people want and all that sort of thing.
That was the whole different agenda.
Because you weren't available to meet them, were you? You were just there to talk.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it sort of was safe, wasn't it?
Yes, it was safe and it was more enjoyable because they call and they make sure that they're available and they're really interested in talking. Sometimes I found that even you're talking on the apps or dating app, you can feel that the person is not really attentive to your conversation. But at that good old days, I mean, people really make a lot of preparation. Arrangement. They made time to talk on the phone, just to talk on the phone, not to talk over the coffee. So that was really the good old times. And at that time, I don't really have that kind of pleasure of I have to go and see those person. Those person respect and they understand that, you're calling the sex call center. You don't expect the girls will meet you.
Yeah, so there's no pressure for you. You just have to talk dirty or listen to them or whatever.
Yes, I just need to keep them happy.
Yeah, keep them happy. Yeah. Did they ever ask about you or did you ever talk about your stuff or your life or was it pretty much about them?
It depends. As I mentioned, the most important is to make them happy.
And so if they ask about you, that's what they want to know.
Well,
would you make stuff up? Would you just tell them anything?
Yeah, sometimes it depends because they are my customers.
They might want a fantasy. Yeah.
They are the clients. So it depends on what kind of directions that they are heading to. Because I still remember one of my clients who was a teacher. Every time he called, I have to make up a new identity. So it depends on the client for, what they are looking for. But of course, some of the clients, they've been talking for a long period of time and we develop a lot of connections and trust. Of course, in some way that I have that confidence and gut feeling to disclose my real self, especially about my disability.
So did you sometimes tell people?
Yes.
Yeah, if you felt that trust and you'd been talking to them.
That trust that it's possible that we can be more open up and honest.
What were the reactions of the people that you told about your disability?
I can tell you that most of the time, I don't really get good feedbacks. These people are spending a lot of time talking to me, and I know them very well. I embrace their identity, their sadness, their embarrassment, their struggle, everything. I mean, I thought that we were really close. But when I step up to talk about my disability, they got really furious. I mean, they would rather believe that I'm a man, and they rather believe that I'm a 300 pounds lady or transgendered person, but they don't believe me that I'm a disabled
So they didn't
woman.
want to imagine you that way. This person they've been talking to, they didn't want to imagine that you were in a wheelchair. That
Right.
kind of ruined the fantasy for them, did it?
Most of them, when I say, hey, actually, there's something I want to tell you. I'm disabled. I'm on a wheelchair. And most of the time they got speechless for a minute or two. And then they would say, it's impossible.
Oh, they didn't believe it.
They don't believe
because you're
it.
too sexy when you talked and they thought that it didn't mesh.
Yeah, it doesn't match. And then probably they would say, it's impossible. Women on wheelchair, they can't feel their lower parts of their body. How come you would be so knowledgeable or be so sexy if you can't feel anything?
And how did you answer that?
I think the most important thing is that for human sexuality, it's not something that between our legs. It's something between our ears. It's our
Yes.
mind that we are playing the game. But I can see that these people find it really difficult to understand or to relate disability and sexuality. No matter how many months and how intimate we were, they just can't relate.
And that's super sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super sad. Sometimes those people, they were just gone. They never
you didn't
call
hear from
again.
them. Oh,
Sometimes they keep calling, but their tone is totally different. They're not the same anymore. I mean, as I told you that I had a caller who was a teacher, or some of the callers from really helping profession. I mean, when I disclose my disability, the next time they call, they just call like they talk like a teacher. I mean, they go back to their own original role that they would think that I need to provide you help.
was that disappointing to have people react like that? Or did you kind of expect that they would react like that when you disclosed your disability?
I was disappointed, but I expected that they would react in that way. Probably because I grown up with this disability. I'm very familiar with how social worker thinks, how therapists think, how doctor thinks, how nurses think, how teachers think. So I'm very aware of their way of thinking or how the relationship they would relate to me. So some of them I would directly to tell them that, I feel really uncomfortable because we are not intimate and we are not connected anymore because you don't see me as the girl that you met before.
They don't see you as
You
a
just
sexual being anymore
You
because
don't
you're
see
in a
me.
wheelchair.
Yeah, you don't see me. You just see my wheelchair now.
Yeah,
So I was the one who say, let's break up.
yeah, fair enough. What has your dating life been like as an adult after you left the call centre? Have you had any sort of experiences out dating, or did you get into the dating apps when they developed?
Well, I was fortunate that I met my ex-boyfriend and we've been together for 14 years.
Oh, great.
And then 2 to 3 years ago, and I decided to break up again.
Yeah.
I made a joke, for over the 14 years, I always make one joke. I was saying, my romantic, intimate life is a disaster. You know why? Because most of the men ran away. They were just afraid. They scared away. Now I'm still in a disaster because my boyfriend doesn't run away.
Can't live with them, can't live without them. Yeah. So one disaster after another.
Yeah. So this disaster is he doesn't run away. So after 14 years,
You got rid of him.
yeah, I'm the one who decided to run away. So it was a tough decision, I think, but it's a good decision. The reason is because in the beginning, I thought that there's a lot of things I need to compromise because of my disability. There's a lot of concerns about relationship, as well as getting married and forming a family, having children and all sorts of it. I think it's just too much for me. I mean, honestly speaking, probably because after that period of time of working in the sex call center, that I personally think that, relationships should be more independent and equal. So there's quite a huge gap between me and my ex-boyfriend. And I tried very hard to compromise for a period of time. And then after that, I think, it's really need to stop because I try hard enough. So, I let myself go.
Yeah, and you gave yourself complete independence, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think that it is a good opportunity for myself to free myself again. And that's the reason why I started to look at sexuality, sex right for people with disability. Because of my personal experience, I can see that, getting a boyfriend is not a success. How to get an equal, enjoying relationship with a person, that is a success.
Yes, that is.
Since then, I decided to start to think of how I can do more advocacy
for people with disabilities regarding their sexuality. I mean, I know that you're currently studying a PhD in social science at PolyU in Hong Kong, where you're researching how social media helps women with disability strengthen their positive social identity. Tell me a bit about that. What is that? Is that really about how we become, using social media, the rest of the world becomes more knowledgeable and more accepting?
Well, I think based off my understanding right now, I think it also combined with my personal experience. I found that, social media was the rock of my transformation, especially during my time, that 14 years of relationship. And then I found that Facebook and social media was really my rock. The reason is because on the Facebook and social media, I met a lot of people and friends with disability from other countries like US, England, Australia, and, different places. They were showing their sexy selfie and they were really, in a way, they were calling it pride, that they are proud of their disability and they can boldly, explicitly to express their need to explore how they can be enjoyable with different kind of assistance to fight for more opportunity, like accessibility for clubhouse, for, place for drinking where you can meet people. In Hong Kong, I can tell you when I went to Lang Kwai Fong.
There's no disability access anywhere, is there?
Right. Every time I went to Lang Kwai Fong, it's like seeing a zebra in the city. A zebra or a dinosaur supposed to be in a zoo. But when I go to Lang Kwai Fong, they were looking at me like I'm a zebra.
Because you're so unusual to see you there. They're not used to seeing people out with disabilities because they can't access anything.
Exactly.
Can they? I've got a friend, Teresa Go, who's a disabled athlete, swimmer. She came to Hong Kong from Singapore and went out, and she had to be carried in everywhere by her friends. She couldn't access any clubs.
Yes. So based on my experience, I would say in a physical community, I can see there is still a lot of barriers for adults disabled with disabilities. I mean, just as I mentioned, even the pub or Lang Kwai Fong, or even I can tell you, even I want to buy my own underwear for lingerie, I don't even have a fitting room.
Oh, right. I didn't even think about that. But yes, it makes sense.
That makes sense. I mean, we have a lot of venue, places, social occasions that excluded people with disability. But while I get on the Facebook, I can see there's so many, I would say they are really proud and crazy people on a wheelchair, and they are proud. Even they got a tummy, they would be happily wearing a bikini on the beach.
Yes, so they're embracing their sexuality and their disability.
Right. So,
and that's inspiring for you.
Yeah, that was really inspiring for me. When I look at those sort of pictures, I was thinking, why can't I do that? I can do that too. So,
Oh, great. That's awesome.
So that was the beginning that I started to explore.
And this is your transformation that you're talking about.
Exactly. So I still remember how my mom, her jaw lips fall. She saw me wearing a red lipstick. She was so scared.
She was shocked.
So, wow, too red,
Too sexy.
Too red. And then I still remember, even for the earring, and then you can imagine, even actually, for so many years, I usually wear secondhand shoes. I can tell you, the first time that I really crazy for shoes, and literally looking at my shoes, it was the first time in the TED Talk.
What? That was your first new pair of shoes? And they were beautiful. You mentioned them in the talk, didn't you?
Yes, it was my first time to have a pair of shoes that people really literally looking for, a suitable shoes for me. For, over the years, I've been having a lot of secondhand shoes because my mothers and my friends, girlfriends, they always tell me, say, oh, Carmen, I got a very nice pair of shoes. It's not comfortable, but, since you don't walk, so
you can wear it because you'll be comfortable for you. Yeah.
So that's why I have a lot of secondhand shoes. So in the past, I never think it would be an issue until when I had my first red shoes in the Texas. So really thanks to the stylist. And then it's really...
And did it make you feel good to have these sexy shoes?
Oh, I can tell you, it's just like, stepping on the cloud and then the sky.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
It's the first time that I really think that I deserve a shoes on my own as well.
Yes, and you do. Yeah. So that's a good lesson to learn, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's why the experience in social media is really the rock of my transformation.
I can really see how that would have been such a support. Like I use it myself I'm in menopause groups on social media and things like that, where you just get support, people going through a similar thing, and you can understand and get ideas and hints and support and inspiration. And it's such a good thing, isn't it? And it's one of the great benefits of social media.
Yes. So I got a lot of inspiration. And then since then, I started to talk to other people disabled in Chinese community about sexuality. And then last year, I started the Sugar Triple X story.
Yeah. So tell me about Sugar Triple X. What is this? Is this the book you wrote? Or you started gathering stories. Was it from people with disabilities or just a whole bunch of stories? Or are they all your stories?
Some of them, I try to keep the stories anonymous. What I usually do now is to collect different stories related to disability and sexuality. And then I will try to write the whole short story or a short novel about that whole piece of collection. So it can be my story. It can be some girls with disability, as well as people who go online dating and they met a disabled girl and they come and share how their experience are. So it comes from really stories from different parts.
If people want to read your Sugar Triple X stories, how can they find them?
Well, honestly speaking, the book was written purposefully in Chinese.
Oh, okay.
The reason is because I found that there's a lot of similar stories in English.
Right. Okay. So you've written it for the Chinese disabled community.
Right.
Okay.
The reason is because I don't see any. So I decided that, we should have something like that.
Great.
And especially because I've been spending many years of doing a lot of advocacy work. I'm talking a lot in open seminars, even medias, everywhere, to talk about sexuality rights for people with disability. But it's just people are not really listening. I feel like it's just like lecturing people, and I feel bad about it. People just keep asking me how. So I decided to write in Chinese. It's like a storybook or an example for people to understand that how sexuality can be free and can be equal with people with disabilities.
So hopefully your message will get across slowly as you keep working on it, and maybe your book will get translated into other languages. You never know.
I really hope so.
Yeah, that would be great.
I really hope so, because I share with a lot of my friends and in Chinese community who reads Chinese. And a lot of them told me that actually my book really should write in English, because I still remember one of my chapter was talking about happy period. Well, the reason why I wrote a short erotic story about happy period is because I found that most of the people think that sex during period is disgusting, is really sick, and no one's really feel comfortable about it. But, we are doing a lot of, work on promoting positive ideas about period, menstruation.
Yeah, many people are very comfortable having sex on the period.
Yes.
Just as long as two people are comfortable, then it's fine.
Yes. So when I tried to Google it, I tried to search it, I found that most of the message online was very negative.
That doesn't surprise me.
And very defeating. So that's why I decided to write an erotic story about
I love Happy Period. It's a great title.
Yes. So I wrote a chapter called Happy Period. I mean, how period can be reconstructed into a more positive and intimate way, which that story actually come from one of my clients.
Great. That's awesome. So in your TED Talk, you talked about how you wrote a sex diary. And was that a story that you developed for Sugar XXX? Or was that a story that you created for the Jockey Club PolyU Human Library Hub?
The story is basically my own personal writing project that I'm trying to explore for the Jockey Club PolyU Human Library Hub. I'm trying to promote other sort of social issues that will bring into schools and general public. So everyone have a lot of different stories can tell.
Yes, storytelling is great, isn't it? That's why I'm doing this podcast. It's so great. So you're planning in this program to bring in different people from different walks of life with different stories and share those stories out in schools and in universities.
Yes. Probably when we go to schools and other general public, probably will be more related to equality or employment or social inclusion, as well as career development and leadership development for people with disabilities. So as I mentioned, everyone have a lot different kind of stories. You never know that, which kind of card that you're playing with, So that's why I think I would like to keep that kind of flexibility, that I can talk about sugar sometimes and I can be talking about something really very general.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess you can't take your sex diary talk into schools. Well, maybe you could. Tell me a bit about your TED Talk and your story about why you kept a sex diary.
I think the reason I started to write more sex diary is to share and to communicate. It's interesting to see that, when you look up on Facebook and you search Sugar XXX, you will realize there's not a lot of people who like the page. It's interesting to see, but actually I keep receiving a lot of messages, a lot of views, but people were just not liking the page because, as you might aware, if you like the page, people will see what you are looking at.
Yes, exactly. You'll be exposed to someone interested in sex stories relating to disabilities, and people don't want to be seen. Interesting. But you get a lot of messages of people complimenting you or being impacted by your stories.
Right. Or being, the page were being viewed, how the numbers. Sometimes I look at my page and people would keep asking me, or even media and reporters say, well, you have very limited small number of likes. I say, well, I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, because you're getting lots of looks.
I got lots of look. I got lots of message, and I know that the book
was being read and
being
well received.
Yeah. So I said, I don't mind. And actually, every time when it's long weekends or holidays, I got a lot of message that I have to go through. And, sometimes some of the stories they wrote to me, it's really make a great impact on me as well. That some of them really breaks my heart, some touch my heart, some I want to go for more to know how their experience are and to communicate with them.
Can you share one of the stories that had a big impact on you that's been shared with you?
I believe one of the stories that I shared in TEDx is a very important story to me. I'm not sure how many of you who are listening do have a sex bucket list.
Yes, I saw you talk about a sex bucket list.
Yeah. I think everyone, when I talk about this, and people were so surprised and they thought, wow, I did not think about it, but I should have.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should, start thinking of their own sex bucket list. And one of the readers was Brittle Bone, and she was sharing her bucket list with me. And one of the top 3 items was bondage. I was so surprised. Actually, I was shocked.
Oh, so she wants to experience bondage.
Yes. So,
which could be hard if you've got brittle bone disorder.
It's really risky. I mean,
yeah,
you
sure.
can't imagine how she could take that risk. So I was so scared. I mean, I felt really, I was blaming myself. I said, you think of what you wrote and what kind of book that
you caused this.
Yeah, like your book is releasing, a monster or something out of the cat, the cat out of the bag now.
Yeah.
Everyone, the things are like the cat getting out of the bag now. Everyone is,
going to extremes.
going to extreme, and what kind of book that you're doing. And, I do blame myself for a period of time. And I feel so bad about, I'm causing more puzzles and more challenges for them to think.
But as something you said in your TED Talk, which resonated when you were talking about your sex diary, you said it doesn't always have to be true. It can be a fantasy.
Exactly.
And maybe that's her fantasy. Maybe it's not something that she would ever actually risk, but it's something that she's interested in thinking about.
Right. Of course, as I mentioned, that I criticized myself for, having more people getting things, cats out of the bag. But at the same time, I think it's a good way.
It's liberating, isn't it?
Yes, that people really start thinking. I mean, for example, like my reader with Brittle Bone, I mean, probably she didn't think of anything like that. But after reading the book, and then we start communicating, and then I was doing this collection of sex bucket lists, and then people were contributing a lot, and she caught my attention. And we have a lot of conversation. And that was the beginning where I started to work with her on her own diary. So she wrote her fantasy. That was a way of fulfilling her dream as well. It's not important of what did she do or what kind of risk she take. The most important is she know more about herself and to feel more proud of herself, that she don't have apologetic about her condition.
And do you think that everybody should write a sex diary? And do you think it's quite therapeutic?
It's always fun. I always tell everybody it's fun, and it will definitely be beneficial for you as well as for your future. Because when I started my own sex diary, it was started when I worked in a sex call center. Because at that time I had too many callers, so I have to build up a client inventory. So
you can remember who was who and what the stories you shared.
Yeah, because everyone they call themselves Michael. So I don't know if he's the Michael number 13 or the Michael number 101. It's really difficult. So I started to write my own records, and then I started to record what kind of conversation we had and what did we do, or as well as his own preferences, so that I can...
So that was your first sex diary. Do you still do your sex diary?
Yes,
How has it evolved now? You're not having to record all your clients.
Well, I don't have to, but I think there's still a lot of interesting that I can record in my own sex diary. One of the examples that I raised in my TED Talk is the experience of being challenged about my body shape, because my ex-employer, during my job appraisal session, she advised me to lose some weight because I look too chubby and it's not presentable. Yeah, everyone will roll their eye, but I can see that it's a very common comment.
It is, and it's kind of Chinese culture.
Yes.
Like I went running and got in a lift once, and I was huffing and puffing, and I was with a Chinese woman, and I said, "Oh, I'm so unfit." And she thought I said, "I'm so fat." And she said, "Oh, yes, I was fat once too." And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's not what I said. But I just laughed. But
yeah, exactly.
She was basically telling me I was fat.
Right. Well, you can see that, body shape in Chinese community is like a law for all women.
Small, aren't they? Very small.
Yeah, even size 8, size 0, they're calling themselves fat.
Which is crazy, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's crazy. But I can tell you, because I'm a woman and I am a disabled, and the bars actually set higher than just being slim. Because from their perspective, they would think that a presentable disabled girl should look slim, very soft, very weak, petty. It's just like need a lot of protection, need a lot of attention. So that's why they call me being too fat and healthy and too
strong.
Too strong.
Yeah.
And too much energy.
Yeah.
Too outspoken.
Too bright.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just don't fit into the stereotype or their social expectation.
Exactly. So that's why they keep calling me the fatty girl. But, in a way that's very defeating me because I felt like people don't really look at my work. They just judge me by how I look. So at that time, I really wear a very gigantic t-shirt and, very uncomfortable. Even on my girlfriend's wedding, I'm just wearing like a hip hop girl. I can tell you she was so furious.
Because you didn't dress up enough. You were just in a big tent.
Yeah, so she was so furious. But I was so insecure in a way. But actually, it is the sex diary that really helps me a lot.
Oh, that's great. So it's helped you embrace your body more.
Right. I wrote in diary, I asked the questions in the diary to myself. I say, in the past, I was so happily confident with my sexuality, relationship with different people. Why I'm so insecure right now? So what can I do? So I go back to read my history, and it was my past that reminds me who I was before. And imagine if Suga is here, what she would say to a chubby girl. So it helps me a lot to reestablish my confidence to go and look what are the ways to help myself as well. So I can tell you, sex diary is not really about how many people or who you were meeting or whatever. Everything is about yourself, how you feel or how you think that you are a sexy being.
Yes. And I'm so glad to see that you've embraced that sexy because you look gorgeous. You've got a beautiful little crop top for the listeners out there. You've got a little top with frills and you've got beautiful earrings and necklace and a lovely red cardigan and you look gorgeous. So it's great to see that you've come out of wearing just the big baggy t-shirts.
The most important is how you feel happy about yourself.
It's a lesson for all of us, Carmen. It really is.
Yeah. That's what I do every day. Every morning, I just look at the mirror and I always think how I can make myself pretty, how I make myself look happy. That will be the way how light up my mood as well.
Yes. If we feel good about how we look, then we feel better inside, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't really put a lot of makeup, but I would, spend some time or a minute to choose the perfume that you want to smell like today. Yeah. It's really, you make your whole day beautiful.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
So it's not about how you make others look happy. It's not about how others make people happy. It's about how you make yourself happy. So that's why I wear red. I wear different color. I can be very adventurous, in my outfit. Because I think of, why not? We can try all sorts of things, even your 30s, 40s, or even your 60s.
Yeah, exactly. Never give up. You can always be sexy.
Well, there's never too late.
It's never too late to change either for our listeners out there who have been feeling a bit down on themselves.
Yeah.
Do things that make you feel good about yourself.
Yes, I think definitely. It helps a lot. And I can tell you that, the sexuality development is not just about teenage. It's not about adulthood. It's not just about getting, honeymoon, just get married, and then that's not the end. Sexuality is throughout our life. So
sure
even
is.
your 80s, you can be sexually active.
Yes.
So I think that is the kind of message that we are trying to build on Facebook, on the internet. And I hope that the online environment, the culture that we are building can somehow bring into our offline environment as well.
And you're talking about this kind of sexuality and embracing that in the disabled community in particular.
Right.
Yes. Oh, look, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very easy that we can see that it's like something related to disability community, but I can tell you it's not that way. Disability and sexuality is actually the nutshell of sexuality. We can see, as I mentioned, about like body image and, all sort of this kind of topic that related to me actually can be applied on different population, even women.
I was just thinking that everything you've said can resonate with any member of the community.
Yes.
And regardless of sex, race, gender, disability, everything. So
Yes.
That's really nice. Even though that's your focus, what you're saying can resonate with all of our listeners.
Exactly. So that is the beauty. I mean, when we talk about social inclusion, about communication, I think that's why I've been spending so much time on working on sexuality, because I can see that how sexuality can be a means for us to communicate, to gain the inclusion and understanding of each other.
Yes. And as you've said, it can also be a means for building self-esteem and confidence as well.
Right. And a way of gaining more understanding and respect of others, especially those who are really different to yourself.
Yes. And it's about not judging others as well, isn't it? That's part of the message. Don't prejudge. Don't assume because somebody's in a wheelchair that they're not bold and brassy and sexy and all of that. Don't assume anything about anybody just based on how they look.
Exactly. And it's really empowering to see how what I am doing and then it really make an impact for others as well, like grannies. When I wear red lipstick, my mom was screaming, but, when I get on the street or, working in different social occasion, a granny came to me and shake my hand and say, "Wow, you look really nice on your red lipstick. Where you brought it? I want to buy one too."
Oh, isn't that nice? So you had an impact on this old granny. That's great.
And so I was thinking, the best thing of what you're doing is just to keep showing up with your own message. And I still believe that, our body, everyone's body actually is like a canvas, is a platform where you can really expressing your message, what you want and who you really are.
We spend so much time focusing on our limitations or our flaws or the things that we don't like about ourselves. And I think what your message is, focus on the positive and take what you've got with your canvas and be the best that you can be. And that's a wonderful message for everyone, isn't it?
Right. And one of the messages that I always tell people is that it's not the lipstick wear you. People get used to follow the fashion, but no, we shouldn't do that. Actually, we are the one who define the fashion of yourself.
That's so true.
So that's why I wear red lipstick, not because I'm following the fashion. It's because that item can help me to express and define who I really are.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yes.
I've heard that you've said you can be your best sex coach. What do you mean by that?
Over the year, actually, I'm studying my sex education certificate, and I read a lot of literatures and studies about sexuality, and we found that masturbation is really important for our sexuality life. The reason why I say everyone is the best sex coach of ourselves is because actually we can train our own body as well. Imagine we talk about sexual response, how we complete the sexual circle that usually described by Master and Johnson, that how the sexual arousal and how you go to the peak and then how the whole circle progress. Actually, we found that masturbators and people who are familiar with their sensation and their body reaction, actually they are more sexually responsive to their stimulation. They require less time and they get more benefit from their sexual experience. So actually, we all have potential to coach ourselves.
Yeah, through masturbation. And it is a really good way for you to get to know your own body and get to know what it is that you like and what turns you on and also what can bring you to orgasm.
Exactly. I still remember one of the lecture that we've learned about people playing with sex toys as well. We have a very, strange myth, especially for ladies, that don't play too much vibrator because, your body will get numb and then you don't feel sensitive anymore.
Oh, I haven't heard that before.
And then, you need stronger vibration, to get responsive.
It's like building up resistance to the vibrations.
Exactly. Yes, this is actually a myth.
Yeah, so I've never heard that,
Oh, really?
No, not at all.
Well, that was also a myth, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a Chinese community myth.
It might be.
But based on our understanding, actually, that's not the way. We found that actually we can train our body. Probably you need to use a specific volume, but actually you can also help yourself to train how a very minimal volume can help yourself to reach to orgasm as well. And we also found that masturbators, actually the muscles, vaginas, and the flexibilities and wetness and everything actually can be trained. It's just like our muscles and our organ. If you don't use it, they will,
Yeah, it's like muscle memory, isn't it?
Yes,
so if you masturbate regularly, your body will be ready for action.
Exactly. So that's why I say it's a coach.
Is that why you also say you can turn on your own sex engine?
Exactly. Because we need to get familiar with our body. You need to explore what are the way how you can control your speed and the progress that will help you to reach to, we usually call it sync with your partners, right?
Yes, to get in sync. And it's not always easy to get in sync with your partner.
Yeah. So the more familiar with your own body actually can help you to sync with your partners instead of waiting, because I read a lot of stories and a lot of feedback comments from my Sugar XXX is a lot of ladies were complaining like, well, he got there and I was, I
was left behind.
I was left behind. But the issue is, I always mention is actually you are being left behind, but actually you have some responsibility.
Yes, because you can speak up. You can say what you want or what you like, or you can direct them, or you can
help yourself.
Yeah, or you can masturbate as well.
Or you can help yourself as well. So that's why I'm also promoting why people need to do masturbation. I mean, it's a way of self-intimacy as well. And I think it's a way of gaining equality between partners, no matter you are heterosexual or homosexual or bisexual or whatever. But I still think that, everyone should be responsible for their sexual experience. That seriously, no one have that kind of obligation that brings you to the climax. So actually everyone have to play their own part.
Yes.
So you need to do your homework.
Yeah. Jen, your homework is to masturbate.
And that is something that I'm trying to promote as well.
It's all linked together, isn't it? Body image, self-esteem, confidence, sexuality, getting to know your own body. It's all linked together. And if you feel good about all of those aspects of your life and you're doing positive things to build all of those aspects of your life, then you're going to just feel better in general and have a healthier sex life, aren't you?
Right. And I still think that, it's important. I think, but not everyone's still thinking that way. But for myself, I still think that even you're being single, you're not married, you doesn't have a partner or you have a partner, you can still having a very satisfying sexual life on your own.
Absolutely. And you can. And I think men are very good at that, but women not so much. Women, I think, can sometimes struggle more with being intimate with themselves, can't they?
Right. So that's why I'm hoping that my book was trying to pass on the message is women should be independent in their sexual life. So the reason is because if you are not independent for your sexual life, you're not happy about yourself and you depend on someone else, actually you will never gain equality in a relationship.
Very, very good point. Carmen, that's amazing. Carmen, look, thank you so much for talking to me today. This has been a fascinating discussion and I really, really appreciate all the information that you've shared with me. If people want to find your TED Talk, how can they find it? What's it called?
They just search Carmen Yao at TEDx Teen How Women and you will find me.
I think it's called something like I Have a Sex Diary or something like that, isn't it? I started a sex diary. And if people want to contact you about your storytelling program at PolyU, how could they get in touch with you if they would like to share a story with you?
Oh, they can search our website. It's Human.Asia and they will find our website. If you can look at the Facebook and you can search as well. You can type Jockey Club, PolyU, Human Library Hubs.
Great. And I'll put the links to all of that in my show notes as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Carmen. It's just been so eye-opening and I was so excited to come and meet you and you've just been fantastic. It's been so interesting and I hope you keep up the good work and that you really do make inroads into the disability community with everybody embracing their sexuality and changing the minds of people around who prejudge people.
Thank you.
It's so important. Everyone. Thanks so much, Carmen. And for my listeners out there, if you feel that this is a podcast that your friends would love to listen to and hear more about Carmen's story and her wisdom around sexuality and disability, please can you share this podcast? And if you could go onto iTunes to rate and review us, that would be amazing because it will help more people find my podcast and more people find Carmen's story, which will be really, really amazing. And thank you so much for listening. And I really, really appreciate it. And for people in Hong Kong, we're having our first Hong Kong podcast festival at the Fringe Club on Monday, the 27th of May. Tickets will be on sale soon and you can find us on Facebook, Hong Kong Podfest or Instagram and find out more about that wonderful evening with a whole bunch of Hong Kong podcasters. There's going to be sex, there's going to be mental health, there's going to be humor. It's going to be fantastic. So please join us. Thanks again, Carmen. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.